All right, y'all. So I'm conflicted with this whole situation going on with Transformation Church. I'm conflicted because I see the vision, I see what they're trying to do. And to be completely honest, there's a lot of elements that I actually enjoyed, that I thought were good. But then there were also some elements that I thought were a little concerning. And I think it kind of represents some of the blind spots that we have in the church. Now, I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm perfect. I have blind spots as well. You know, I can acknowledge that. I'm very hypocritical at times in some of the views that I have. And hey, I'm human. Like, you know what I'm saying? I'm human. But as I said, I'm conflicted because I see what they're trying to do and I appreciate the production value that they put into this. Because if you watch this, and this is almost, it's like a documentary, but at the same time, it's like an album release party. And it almost felt like the BET Awards. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like they had that place jumping. It was jumping. The camera, production, editing, lighting, sound was top notch. They put a bag into the production. Like they really went all out. They made some investments. And as somebody who's, in media and trying to grow a network, I appreciate the production and I appreciate that they're trying to really do the best that they can in order to present this project to glorify God. Now, the problem is when you dig a little bit deeper, it does feel, and this is a word that has been thrown around a lot, but it just is what it is. It does feel very worldly. It does. It does seem like the focus is very much on the individuals as opposed to God. Now, that's not always the case. I watched maybe an hour of this video. It's 3 hours long. So I'm sorry. I couldn't sit there and watch it for 3 hours, but I watched an hour of it and there were parts that I really enjoyed, like I said, and then there were also parts that I thought were problematic. Some of the problems I felt like were, it did feel very self-focused. It did seem that there's just this fixation on materialism for some reason. And maybe that's just me because I've never really been into like fancy clothes. Like you see, I wear the same stuff almost every day. I've never really been into like name brand clothes and designer clothes and jewelry and shoes. Like I have some shoes, but I've never really been into it like that. And I'm not saying that that alone is sinful, because that's not sinful. That alone is not sinful. But I'm just saying like it felt like it was very much focused on those things as opposed to worship, which is what the album is supposed to be about, right? It's a rap album, it's a R&B album, but the whole focus is supposed to be towards Jesus Christ, towards God. And it just felt a little strange at moments. At moments. There were moments where I genuinely saw the presence of the Holy Spirit in what they were doing. There were songs that I listened to and I was like, yo, these are great songs. Like, I could ride around and I can listen to these songs. They're great. And when I looked into it a little bit deeper, it's like, yeah, and the lyrics, they check out, they seem to be biblical. But then there's other songs that are clearly preaching a prosperity gospel, are clearly just focused about money, are clearly just focused about self. And I just feel like, can we get past that? Like, and it's tough because here's the thing. Here's the thing, and I'm gonna get to this video in a second, because I think this is a very interesting video from Alex G, and I'm gonna get to it in a second. Here's the thing. I was in the car yesterday. I forgot where I was going. Oh, I was getting coffee. It was like 5 a.m, so there was like nobody on the street. Well, hardly anybody on the street. And I'm riding to get coffee, and I'm just flipping through my playlist, and randomly I get suggested a song that I've never heard before. Now, I've listened to this artist before, he's a Christian hip hop artist. He used to be a secular artist, but now he's a Christian hip hop artist. And I think he's been a Christian hip hop artist for at least like 5 years now. So I hear this song and instantly I fall in love with the song. It was hitting. And you know, when a song comes on and it starts hitting, like you already know. I had this on repeat. I'm in the car. It's doing it. And I'm riding around for the next like 30 minutes with this song on repeat. And then I get home. I park the car in the garage. I get out of the car. And I'm kind of just like feeling a little bit uneasy in my spirit. And I'm kind of like thinking back like, yo, why is that song have such a hold on me right now? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, why, how come I feel like this is a song that I can listen to again and again and again and again, but why do I feel so uneasy about it? And so I went back and listened to it one more time. And although he was mentioning God, he was talking about God, he was talking about faith, the song was very much secular. It was very much secular. It was very much a secular rap song, which was clean. Obviously, he wasn't cussing, but the focus was on the things of the world as opposed to God. And it was really a reminder that a lot of these songs that we listen to, most of these songs that we listen to, they're designed to get stuck in our head. They're designed to have us singing them again and again and again all day long. That's how they're literally designed. That's how they're developed. These labels, they have a formula. These music labels, they've been doing this for so long. They know how to craft a song that has a very high likelihood of going viral, a very high likelihood of charting. They know how to do this. They've been doing it for decades. And when you bring those same principles into Christian music, you have to be very careful that you are remaining biblical while doing that. Otherwise, you risk creating a song that might, on the surface level, appear to be a Christian song, but when you really dig deeper into it, it's actually unbiblical. And now you're kind of going into this direction where it might even become dangerous because the song is so catchy. It sounds so good that we're going to play it because we've been conditioned and we've grown up on this type of music. Like, I grew up on rap music, R&B music, pop music. Like, I grew up on that type of stuff. And a lot of people listening, y'all grew up on these mainstream, genres of music. And when we hear similar tones, similar elements, similar drums, similar beats, similar flows, it's easy for us to just turn it on and say, well, it's a Christian song, so they must be leading us in the right direction. But you can't always trust that completely. And that's kind of my feeling on some of the songs on this project. Okay. So, like I said, I'm not completely hating on it because I see what they're trying to do, but it does raise quite a bit of concerns. And I know I said a lot right there. I know I said a lot. So I'm going to let y'all listen to Alex for a second. All right. I'm going to chime in a little bit from, here and there and give my thoughts, but take a listen to what Alex had to say in response to all this conflict.
A lot of people are concerned with the Transformation Church album Sunday and the clips and all like that. And I get it. I actually understand your concern. I genuinely understand your concern. That's why I'm speaking on it. Not to feed into the controversy or that is that, but I know people are curious and it's something that should be spoken about. So I'm making this video. All right. Here's where I'm going to start. I believe the main conflict isn't what happened at Transformation Church. I don't think the main conflict is the Cybertruck. I don't think the main is any of that. The real conversation that's going on is, what is God's idea of church? What was God's original idea of church? Jesus said what it was, and he was very clear on it when he first introduced the church to us in Matthew. And he says the word, he uses the word ecclesia, the assembly of his ambassadors, right? It's like we come together as a country and we refill each other. You know what I'm saying? Very simple, very bare bones definition. So now that we know what a church is, the question is, should churches look like concerts? Should churches use stages and have grandioso LED screens and lights and cyber trucks and dances and trumpets and horns and bands? Like, that becomes the question. And I think where the question comes from is because when we look at the world, we see those same tools being used to glorify the devil. So because we first associated those things with being used by the devil for the devil, when those same neutral tools are used to glorify God, I think red flags going on. And we're like, whoa, 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 whoa. This isn't right. It must mean the same attitude they have to serve themselves. You have the same attitude because you use the same tools. But here's the thing, though. If you put a hammer in a construction worker's hand, they'll build you a house. But if you put a hammer in a lawyer's hand, they won't give you anything. They will just give you some sticks, dirt, and nails. So the tool isn't the issue. The issue is whose hands it's in. A lot of times we came up in a generation that may have been afraid of money because the people who had money weren't using it for God. And people were afraid of becoming president, politicians, and people in government because they were corrupt. And people decided not to do things with their lives because of the attitude that if I do that, I'm not in God's purpose, which isn't true, because the thing is, God puts us there and wants us to obtain those things is because it's supposed to be in our hands. I feel like when you're born again, that's the kind of attitude we need to obtain, because our old life is dead. Now we have to
Like I said, I see what he's saying, because I think that we can take these tools in terms of like media, for example, music, having a high quality of production. I think we can take these tools and we can use them to glorify God. I absolutely do think we can do that. But at the same time, I think we have to be careful in how we go about that, because so much of the example that we have has been given to us by the world. And people don't really understand. Subconsciously, you might be influenced by the world more than you think, simply because your prior consumption, before you gave your life to Christ, your prior consumption was very much worldly as opposed to focused on Christ. So, yes, I understand that when we're born again, we're transformed, we're, made new, but it's still a process. Sanctification is still a process. There still is some subconscious tendencies that we have that sometimes and oftentimes in creative settings we revert back to, because that's what we were, influenced by. That's how we grew up. And I think we just have to be very careful in terms of how we use these tools when we are trying to use them to glorify God. I think we have to be very careful. I do. And as I said, I see what they are trying to do, and I appreciate it because, I'm in a situation as well where I want to develop original TV shows. I want to develop original documentaries. In fact, that's what we're doing, right? And I don't want to just have it on just like a regular level. Like, I want to compete with the Netflix, with the HBOs, with the Apples, with the Amazons. We're going to be competing on that scale. But at the same time, I think we have to be careful in how we do that in order to still remain set apart while we're operating at that level, if that makes sense. But let's continue.
From a kingdom perspective and be like, what is heaven like so I can make heaven on earth? Exactly what Jesus said to pray for. But if it's hard to attach yourself from the physical and think in the spiritual and then operate physically from the spiritual first. That's the constant battle of the spirit you have when you become saved. Now, the wise question becomes, what is God's attitude of music in heaven? And there's no verse that explains what music should be like besides a few verses that mentions it shortly. Like one verse says, make music from your heart to the Lord. Another verse in Psalms talks about use the lyre, use the harp, use this, use all these things, skillfully play music to the Lord. It gives us small things, but we're not gonna find a direct answer to every single problem in the Bible. The thing is, that's why we have the Holy Spirit to give us his attitude and wisdom to navigate situations just as Jesus would, right? So the point isn't to be like, does the Bible say? The point is to think like God. The point of all this is to think like God. So, what's an example of this? Honestly, that might be good enough. I have one in my head, but it's gone. The question becomes now, well, what would God's attitude be on music based biblically, right? This is where a kingdom perspective falls into play. And
So I'm gonna pause it right there. I think that we can. Let me bring it back to myself. I think that from what we're trying to do, I think that we can invest finances, invest money into projects in order to glorify God. And I think simply because we are investing substantial amounts of money in order to create projects to glorify God, to bring people closer to Him, to reach out into media, which is largely secular, and to grab people's attention and to entertain them at a level that they're used to be entertained, but at the same time give them substance and not just fast food, but actually give them the nourishment that they're looking for. I think we can do all of that without being boastful, without coming across as we're flexing, or without losing that sense of humility. Because just some of the things that I kind of picked up on with, what they were doing at Transformation, and also with a lot of these dudes, these younger dudes who are coming up in Christian hip hop, it's just become almost like very much on the same type of timing that these secular rappers are on, in terms of having the, nicest and most up-to-date clothes, and, having to spend money on jewelry and spend money on cars, and having to construct your music videos in a similar fashion that we're used to seeing in terms of like the flexing and just the money and all that type of stuff. It just seems very much self-focused. And I think that's just something that we have to be very careful when we're operating in these spaces. I think we can reclaim territory for God's kingdom within media, within music, within any industry. But I think we have to be very mindful in terms of what that actually looks like when we are executing on those ideas. Because like I said, I think it's easy for us as human beings who have been conditioned to revert back to that conditioning that we grew up under, as opposed to fully leaning on God's direction and guidance throughout the making of whatever project that it is. And that sounds, it's easier said than done. It's easier said than done. Because I'm sure if you ask Mike Todd, if you ask these individuals who are involved in these projects, I'm sure that they would say that they were completely led by God in making these projects. It's easier said than done. So I don't want to sit here and be overly judgmental. I just wanted to share my opinion and kind of give my thoughts about it. As I said, I'm conflicted about it myself because I see what they're trying to do. But at the same time, there is a lot of red flags that are problematic. You know what I mean? So you let me know what you think. Get in my comments, like this video. I'm out, y'all.